Such probably is the fate of every village. After finishing school, most teenagers strive to leave. Some go to study, while others immediately start working. Only those who can survive in these simple conditions acquire a farm, a garden, chickens and ducks, and live in their homes until their old age. Or girls who marry a local man and have children. However, most people in their youth do not plan to stay. I remember my childhood when I was a teenager and was surrounded by a large number of my peers. We gathered at the old House of Culture and had a good time, but many then stated that they had no work here. They sought to flee the village immediately. The plans were implemented by most of them. I stayed, although over the next 10 years almost all my friends moved away. I just couldn't get out of my familiar world and couldn't find the answer to the question, why do I need to go? Just because everyone is leaving? That sounds stupid, but earn a dream. But as an electrician, I helped my village live better. I'm really not a spoiled person. I live in my own house where there are chickens, geese, fruits, and vegetables. The cat Anfisa and the dog Burin. It seems like everything is fine. Where can I improve? I doubt that I have many friends left and I have no family. I would like a wife, but not the most beautiful one. The main thing is to feel love. However, marital affairs also continue. There is no need to rush here. In fact, I liked everything. I rarely complained about boredom. It's sad when nothing happens for a long time, but to be honest, it's better if nothing happens. I was one of the first to see the sheer nightmare that this autumn brought to our village. In early September, a guest suddenly arrived at my place. I almost fell asleep when I suddenly heard someone throwing gravel at the window. If you can't get to the gate, it's considered normal. As a result, all the windows were broken. After I put on my bathrobe and went outside the fence, I ran into Seryoga, my former classmate. He was a stupid guy, and we didn't hang out at school. But they had to become friends because they were already left in the same backwater. Seryoga shouted, "Sivka," as soon as he saw me. I address him with the words, "I asked you not to call me that, we are no longer children." He replied, "Sorry, Seva, I forgot." This was completely new. Seryoga usually didn't apologize but started swearing. It seemed he needed help. "Did something happen to you?" I asked. He replied, "My mother is gone." "Gone?" I was surprised. Seryoga answered with a nod. "She went into the forest and disappeared." She disappeared into the night. It seems the guy is worried. "And why would she go into the forest?" I asked. Seryoga waved his hand and confirmed, "Yeah, damn it, she's been nagging my brain for 3 days with her honey mushrooms." "Honey mushrooms have appeared." I told her, "I don't need them, I'll buy them at the market." When she sighed again and again, I felt bad and she went alone. Not like that, I was just asking questions because I didn't know what he wanted from me. "And how long ago did she leave?" Seryoga said, "Well, it was still light." "What's the point of this?" A mother wouldn't go into the forest in the dark. How did she disappear? "And how can I help you?" Finally, I asked a question. "She has a heart, you understand?" The guy answered with irritation. "The ambulance just arrived for her. Come with me and find her." I agreed and went. What was the reason for the refusal? Since we are neighbors, we need to support each other. After I got dressed and put a headlamp on my forehead, we went into the forest. There's a lot of forest in our village. Despite the fact that it is not the taiga, even if you are a local, you can get lost. Seryoga and I walked along similar paths and shouted, "Mama Olga Petrovna!" Silence in response. Nearby, only owls were shouting. Seryoga held a flashlight. He felt bad. "I will never forgive myself if something happens to her." I confidently said, "Everything will be fine, don't worry." I thought he was worried in vain, but it's normal for a woman to get lost. How many times in our country have people gotten lost and then found themselves? Seryoga shouted, "Mom." I asked, "Listen, maybe she went to a neighbor's place?" He replied, "I've already been around to all the neighbors." "No one saw her," the guy replied. All that remained was to get up and shout, "Olga Petrovna, where are you?" "Wait, someone is rustling over there, it seems," said Seryoga, touching my shoulder to make me shut up. He left the path and headed into the thickets. "Hello, is that you?" I remained in place and listened carefully. Although the flashlight's light was shining behind the bushes, no one could hear voices. Why did the silence suddenly begin? I had to go and see what he had frozen there for. I walked through the thickets. A man was shining straight ahead and was standing with his back to me. "Seryoga, what are you doing here?" he asked, patting him on the shoulder. Seryoga, who are you? The man just squeezed out a weak reply. In addition, I paid attention to the place where the flashlight beam was directed. Suddenly, my whole body froze as if it had turned to stone. Something resembling a bloody soul lay in the clearing, and a creature that cannot be defined as either a human or a beast bent over it, some kind of creepy and dirty mud. This person had no neck. A large bald head was attached to his shoulders, and on his face there was only one white eye with a tiny pupil and a wide mouth, on which there were no lips except for continuous spikes of teeth. It chewed and smacked, dropping crushed pieces of flesh to the ground. The ground around was covered in blood. The creature was fiddling with its body and greedily digging into it with its claws. Seryoga pulled the phone out of his hands. After a brief look at us, she returned to her prey. In front of him lay a human body, almost without a head. Everything was swallowed by sharp teeth down to the very nose. However, I found the woman by her hands. "Olga Petrovna, what the hell?" I shouted unconsciously. The one-eyed creature came up to us and growled. We didn't even raise a hand. Then it grabbed the carcass, put it on its shoulder, and ran away from the light. Somewhere leaves and branches rustled. We stood and looked at the blood-drenched empty clearing. I waited for the terrible vision to disappear, but everything continued. It happened. To make him come to his senses, I shook him by the shoulders. "Let's get out of here." "How will we go?" asked Seryoga, scared. He took her. I suggested going. I grabbed his hand. He took my mother. My mother. I practically pulled him out of there. Seryoga was constantly moving, stopping and returning back. It was difficult for me to maintain my composure. My mind was on the verge of insanity. "Did you see?" Seryoga asked when we got out of the thicket. I agreed. "I saw." When he heard this, the guy fell to his knees and burst into tears. Her head was eaten. My mother's head was eaten. I would have preferred to stay at home. Why did I have to inflict such a severe psychological trauma on myself? No person would want to see something like that. The man was gnawed by a one-eyed creature. When we told them about it, you should have heard how the cops yelled at us. They thought we were under threat. Although I would be glad if this were true, the investigators confirmed that there was a lot of blood and a bag of honey mushrooms in the clearing. The woman in poverty went for mushrooms. After this, Seryoga was taken to the hospital. For a while he went crazy. He both cried and laughed at the same time. Hysterics cannot be stopped without the help of doctors. What's more, I returned home in the morning. As if learning about the disaster, Burin was barking. As if trying to calm me down, Anfisa rubbed against me. When I lay down in bed, my body was limp and my heart was still pounding. At that terrible moment, my mind was stuck. It was watching the same footage. A one-eyed abomination tearing human flesh. I didn't want to discuss it with anyone. However, we are still in a village. People here will die if they don't spread rumors. They don't need tongues for anything else. The next time I left the house, my neighbor Aunt Sveta immediately appeared next to me. She had probably been on duty at the window for more than a day to see when I would go outside. "Seva," she shouted. I didn't turn around to answer. Aunt Sveta said, "What nonsense," people told me. I was eager to get rid of her as soon as possible, go to the store, and hide at home again. Nevertheless, the woman ran after me with questions. "This is wrong. What is it?" I asked through clenched teeth. "What's wrong?" It is unknown what gnawed on Seryoja's mother. "Tell me, and you've already been told everything." I ran faster. When he entered the village store, he saw that 2 men and a woman were already standing there. They were whispering about something, but seeing me, they fell silent. I bought the goods that I saw for the first time in the shop window. I just wanted to go back to my place. Yes, and it remained unchanged. The main thing is not to starve. The man and the woman started whispering again when he left. The guys thought they were in complete shock. It was probably a bear. What bear? The bear was not welcome here. Yes, in addition, there were miracles, Yudishes. Yes. The whole forest. Go to hell. You go to hell yourself. In our village, people talk like this. This is a typical situation. Everyone is a member of the same family. There are no personal boundaries. It is still customary to say hello to everyone on the street. It doesn't matter if you communicate with a person. We all know each other well. When I was walking home, a plump man on a large bicycle sped past me with a cheerful cry. "Hello." "Hello, Tolik," I said. He is a stupid and hopeless good-natured person. Cheerful and always smiling. God didn't give him a mind, but he has a job. Tolik rang the bells located in the church. Despite the fact that he did not ask questions, I headed to Molodizhnaya from the central street. To meet fewer people, he decided to go around. He came across an old woman's crutch. She was a friendly woman. She never asked questions, and now it was over. "Hello," I said. "Hello, dear," she replied. In addition, we broke up. After that, a middle-aged man caught my eye. He always sat on a bench in front of the house as a watchman. He couldn't speak at all. This calm person just nodded in response, not saying hello to anyone. I didn't even know his name. Then I ran into an old man who was probably the oldest person in the district. He seems to be 100 years old. A grandfather with a gray beard and a small height. He was watching me from behind the fence. I tried to walk past, pretending not to notice this old man who loved to gossip despite his venerable age. However, the grandfather cried out, "Listen!" I looked back. The grandfather also asked, "Did you tell the police that you saw unclean things in the forest?" "Yes," I replied. The old man scratched his beard. "Can you tell me how many eyes he had?" I said, "1. In addition, my companion whispered, "It's awful." "What's the trouble?" "Trouble with one eye." "These are not fairy tales," he said. Thus he himself did not see him. You never know what your grandmother said 100 years ago. However, the monster exists. Perhaps he is also right about everything else, I asked. And how to identify it? "We must look for people who do not have a family." The old man replied, "Leek is always alone." He gradually got up from his chair and ran to his house. I haven't heard from him since. I was returning home thinking about the old man's words. He lives in a human form somewhere nearby. Everyone thought we had known him for a long time. We should look among those who do not have a family, as well as among those who may have a family. I now began to suspect many people. Tolik happily sped past. "Hello," he shouted, jerking the steering wheel. "Hello, Tolik," I said, or maybe it's him. Yes, he seemed to have parents, but they died a long time ago. I could remember them. What if these memories are not real? An old woman with a crutch passed by. "Hello." I told her, "Hello, dear." In addition, she is a suspicious woman who avoids any questions and gossip. She lives as if isolated from everyone. In addition, the man on the bench did not inspire confidence. He is not known to anyone. He is very lonely. In addition, there are very few women in our village. A few years ago, I myself buried my father and now live like a prisoner. What happened to our nice house? The devil can figure it out. Not a few days passed before people announced a new disaster. On a cloudy morning, a twisted bicycle was found on the street, and around it was a thick red blood covering the road, the ground, and the grass. And people gathered here. In the crowd, someone said, "What a miracle." She was not afraid of the Holy Land. She gnawed the guy right near the church. Tolik owned this bicycle. I suspected him in advance, and I feel sorry for the stupid man. There are not so many people on earth who are so kind. Although there was a man in the village who was against it, I realized that Lika devours everyone indiscriminately. Anton Nikolaevich is my neighbor. A great man. While he was working in the garden, he regularly turned on music for the whole street. In addition, each song was completely stupid. His music caused me wild delight. After a few days, we met Anton Nikolaevich when a funeral procession was taking place at the cemetery. Watching this, the man smiled somehow strangely. I went up and asked, "Can you not determine who they are burying?" "Tolik," said Nikolaevich. I was in shock. "Did they find the body?" He shook his head. "No, they are carrying an empty coffin. This is the third coffin that has been left empty." I noted that this is terrible. For a village with such a small population, 3 deaths in one autumn are excessive. At the same time, Anton Nikolaevich remained an optimist. "You and I have nothing to fear." I asked, "Why?" He answered cynically, "Judge for yourself who was gnawed. An old sick woman, a local alcoholic, and a stupid man. Do you understand that this monster is like a predator? Wolves eat deer that lag behind the herd and eat the weak and sick so as not to infect the healthy. This is nature," I grimly stated. "You have no conscience. I really don't regret it." The man even smiled. Apparently, he was very proud of himself. When I wanted to prick him, I said, "My friend's mother and a teacher at the school, Olga Petrovna. She just retired not long ago. I never saw my father drunk." Nikolaevich recalled his sins in the past. He drank when he was young, but then gave it up due to health problems. I asked, "And what did Tolik do to you?" "He would not harm a fly." He threw his hands up. "I don't feel sorry for fools," I asked. "What if one of your loved ones died?" "I wouldn't mind if it was about my mother-in-law." Nikolaevich laughed so hard that his laughter was probably heard even at the cemetery. This conversation annoyed me. I wanted to rinse my mouth so much. Of course, it's a shame that it's not him. Ridiculous. Anton Nikolaevich has children and a wife. I wanted to hit him on the head. The cold weather has set in. The village looked dead. Not many people walked the streets. The school has ceased its activities. The cops often drove around the streets, but this led to nothing. Everyone lived in fear and didn't talk about anything. I walked to the store and back by myself. One of his decisions was to cut off the path. It was almost dark. There is no one on the streets. This is awful. I am walking and suddenly I see a man sitting on a bench in front of the house. I thought it was strange.
Why doesn't he feel fear?
In addition, he is sticking out in such a cold. I told him, "Hello." He said to me, "Yes." In addition, he is a very strange person. I have never heard a greeting from him in my whole life. Yes, how long have I known him? As if my whole life. He always sat on this bench as if he had grown to it in both heat and cold. Was he younger before? He looks like a normal person, but at the same time a little strange. I approached him and asked, "What are you doing here?" In addition, he grumbled in response, "I come in and sit. I live here. Get out of here. I can't remember your name. What's your name?" In addition, this man repeated, not my intonations, "Get out of here." I asked an additional question, "Do you live alone?" "No, I have a big family." This man answered quickly, as if he had prepared the answers in advance. When I looked at his small house, I noticed that the windows were dark. "Isn't it strange?" I asked, "Where are they all?" The man grimaced with rage. "Where else are the houses?" I said, "You don't have lights on in the windows. Get out of here." For the third time, this phrase sounded as if it had been recorded. A chill ran down my spine. I was not a man sitting in front of me. This is ridiculous. In front of the gate there is thick grass as if it had not been opened for a long time. I headed towards it. The man became enraged and shouted, "Why did you climb?" I said in response, "I would like to say hello to your family and ask a few questions." In addition, he growled as soon as I touched the handle. Exactly the same voice as an animal in the forest. At the same moment, a terrible event occurred. Jumping off the bench, the man got on all fours and growled like a predator. His face was terrifying. It was sliding as fast as wax. The melted skin was dripping onto the ground. He pressed his head to his shoulders. Huge muscles swelled under his shirt. I got scared and ran to a safe distance. People continued to jump on all fours and scream. People from neighboring houses appeared here. Everyone was interested in what was happening on the street. "Unclean," a woman shouted, looking at the monster. The skin covered with wax came off. The monster looked at everyone with one eye and moved into the darkness of the street to show its true face. In its place were scraps of clothing. Something like this has never been seen in our parts again. It seems that Liko ran away for fear of being exposed. In addition, that house was abandoned. There were only gray, empty walls in it without any furniture. In addition, none of the neighbors could remember where this false dwelling came from at all.